Chapter 37. Jason. Jason had found his sister and lost her in less than an hour. As they climbed the cliffs of the floating island, he kept looking back, but Thalia was gone. Despite what she'd said about meeting him again, Jason wondered. She'd found a new family with the Hunters and a new mother in Artemis. She seemed so confident and comfortable with her life that Jason wasn't sure if he'd ever be part of it. And she seemed to set on finding her friend Percy. Had she ever searched for Jason that way? Not fair, he told himself. She thought you were dead. He could barely tolerate what she'd said about their mum. It was almost like Thalia had handed him a baby, a really loud, ugly baby, and said, "Here, this is yours, carry it." He didn't want to carry it. He didn't want to look at it or claim it. He didn't want to know that he had an unstable mother who got rid of him to appease a goddess. No wonder Thalia had run away. Then he remembered the Zeus cabin at Camp Half-Blood, that tiny little alcove Thalia had used as a bunk, out of sight from the glowering statue of the sky god. Their dad wasn't much of a bargain either. Jason understood why Thalia had renounced this part of her life, too, but he was still resentful. He couldn't be lucky. Couldn't be so lucky. He was left holding the bag, literally. The golden backpack of winds was strapped over his shoulders. The closer they got to Aeolus's palace, the heavier the bag got. The wind struggled, rumbling and bumping around. The only one who seemed in a good mood was Coach Hedge. He kept bounding up the slippery staircase and trotting back down. "Come on, cupcakes! Only a few thousand more steps." As they climbed, Leo and Piper left Jason in his silence. Maybe they could sense his bad mood. Piper kept glancing back, worried, as if he were the one who'd almost died of hypothermia rather than she. Or maybe she was thinking about Thalia's idea. They told her what Thalia had said on the bridge, how they could save both her dad and Hera. But Jason didn't really understand how they were going to do that, and he wasn't sure if the possibility had made Piper more hopeful or just more anxious. Leo kept squatting his own legs, checking for signs that his trousers were on fire. He wasn't steaming anymore, but the incident on the ice bridge had really freaked Jason out. Leo hadn't seemed to realise that he had smoke coming out of his ears and flames dancing through his hair. If Leo started spontaneously combusting every time he got excited, they were going to have a tough time taking him anywhere. Jason imagined trying to get food at a restaurant. "I'll have a cheeseburger and, my friend's on fire, get me a bucket." Mostly, though, Jason worried about what Leo had said. Jason didn't want to be a bridge, or an exchange, or anything else. He just wanted to know where he'd come from. And Thalia had looked so unnerved when Leo mentioned the burnt-out house in his dreams, the place the wolf, Lupa, had told him was his starting point. How did Thalia know that place, and why did she assume Jason could find it? The answer seemed close, but the nearer Jason got to it, the less it cooperated, like the winds on his back. Finally, they arrived at the top of the island. Bronze walls marched all the way around the fortress grounds, though Jason couldn't imagine who would possibly attack this palace. 20-foot-high gates opened for them, and a road of polished purple stone led up to the main citadel, a white columned rotunda, Greek style, like one of the monuments in Washington, D.C., except for the cluster of satellite dishes and radio towers on the roof. "That's bizarre," Piper said. "Guess you can't get cable on a floating island," Leo said. "Dang, check this guy's front yard." The rotunda sat in the centre of a quarter-mile circle. The grounds were amazing in a scary way. They were divided into 4 sections like a big pizza slice, each one representing a season. The section on their right was an icy waste, with bare trees and a frozen lake. Snowmen rolled across the landscape as the wind blew, so Jason wasn't sure if they were decorations or alive. To their left was an autumn park, with gold and red trees. Mounds of leaves blew into patterns. Gods, people, animals that ran after each other before scattering back into leaves. In the distance, Jason could see 2 more areas behind the rotunda. One looked like a green pasture with sheep made out of clouds. The last section was a desert where tumbleweeds stretched and scratched strange patterns in the sand like Greek letters. Smiley faces and a huge advertisement that read, "Watch Aeolus nightly." 1 section for each of the 4 wind gods, Jason guessed. 4 cardinal directions. "I'm loving that pasture." Coach Hedge licked his lips. "You guys mind?" "Go ahead," Jason said. He was actually relieved to send the satyr off. It would be hard enough getting on Aeolus's good side without Coach Hedge waving his club and screaming, "Die!" While the satyr ran off to attack Springtime, Jason, Leo and Piper walked down the road to the steps of the palace. They passed through the front doors into a white marble foyer, decorated with purple banners that said Olympian Weather Channel, and some that just said, "Ow." "Hello." A woman floated up to them. Literally floated. She was pretty in that elfish way Jason associated with nature spirits at Camp Half-Blood, petite, slightly pointy ears and an ageless face that could have been 16 or 30. Her brown eyes twinkled cheerfully. Even though there was no wind, her dark hair blew in slow motion, shampoo commercial style. Her white gown billowed around her like parachute material. Jason couldn't tell if she had feet, but if so, they didn't touch the floor. She had a white tablet computer in her hand. "Are you from Lord Zeus?" she asked. "We've been expecting you." Jason tried to respond, but it was a little hard to think straight, because he'd realised the woman was see-through. Her shade and her shape faded in and out like she was made of fog. "Are you a ghost?" he asked. Right away he knew he'd insulted her. The smile turned into a pout. "I'm an aura, sir, a wind nymph, as you might expect, working for the Lord of the Winds. My name is Melly. We don't have ghosts." Piper came to the rescue. "No, of course you don't. My friend simply mistook you for Helen of Troy, the most beautiful mortal of all time. It's an easy mistake." Wow, she was good. The compliment seemed a little over the top, but Melly the aura blushed. "Oh, well then. So you are from Zeus?" Jason said. "I'm the son of Zeus, yeah." "Excellent. Please, right this way." She led them through some security doors into another lobby, consulting her tablet as she floated. She didn't look where she was going, but apparently it didn't matter as she drifted straight through a marble column with no problem. "We're out of prime time now, so that's good," she mused. "I can fit you in right before his 11:12 spot." Okay, Jason said. The lobby was a pretty distracting place. Winds blasted around them, so Jason felt like he was pushing through an invisible crowd. Doors blew open and slammed by themselves. The things Jason could see were just as bizarre. Paper aeroplanes, all of different sizes and shapes, sped around, and other wind nymphs, Ori, would occasionally pluck them out of the air, unfold and read them, then toss them back into the air, where the planes would refold themselves and keep flying. An ugly creature fluttered past. She looked like a mix between an old lady and a chicken on steroids. She had a wrinkled face with black hair tied in a hairnet, arms like a human, plus wings like a chicken, and a fat, feathered body with talons for feet. It was amazing she could fly at all. She kept drifting around and bumping into things like a parade balloon. "Not an aura?" Jason asked Melly as the creature wobbled by. Melly laughed. "That's a harpy, of course. Oh, our ugly stepsisters, I suppose you would say. Don't you have harpies on Olympus? They're spirits of violent gusts. Unlike us Ori, we're all gentle breezes." She batted her eyes at Jason. "Course you are," he said. "So," Piper prompted, "you were taking us to see Aeolus?" Melly led them through a set of doors like an airlock. Above the interior door, a green light blinked. "We have a few minutes before he starts," Melly said cheerfully. "He probably won't kill you if we go in now. Come along." Chapter 38. Jason. Jason's jaw dropped. The central section of Aeolus's fortress was as big as a cathedral, with a soaring domed roof covered in silver. Television equipment floated randomly through the air. Cameras, spotlights, set pieces, potted plants. And there was no floor. Leo almost fell into the chasm before Jason pulled him back. "Holy!" Leo gulped. "Hey, Melly, a little warning next time?" An enormous circular pit plunged into the heart of the mountain. It was probably 1/2 a mile deep, honeycombed with caves. Some of the tunnels probably led straight outside. Jason remembered seeing winds blast out of them when they'd been on Pikes Peak. Other caves were sealed with some glistening material like glass or wax. The whole cavern bustled with harpies, Ori and paper aeroplanes. But for someone who couldn't fly, it would be a very, very long, fatal fall. "Oh my," Melly gasped. "I'm so sorry." She unclipped a walkie-talkie from somewhere inside her robes and spoke into it. "Hello, sets. Is that Nuggets? Hi, Nuggets. Could we get a floor in the main studio, please? Yes, a solid one. Thanks." A few seconds later, an army of harpies rose from the pit, 3 dozen or so demon chicken ladies, all carrying squares of various building material. They went to work hammering and gluing, and using large quantities of duct tape, which didn't reassure Jason. In no time there was a makeshift floor snaking out from the chasm. It was made of plywood, marble blocks, carpet squares, wedges of grass sod, just about anything. "This can't be safe," Jason said. "Oh, it is," Melly assured him. "The harpies are very good." Easy for her to say. She just drifted across without touching the floor, but Jason decided he had the best chance of surviving since he could fly, so he stepped out first. Amazingly, the floor held. Piper gripped his hand and followed him. "If I fall, you're catching me." Sure." Jason hoped he wasn't blushing. Leo stepped out next. "You're catching me too, Superman, but I ain't holding your hand." Melly led them towards the middle of the chamber, where a loose sphere of flat panel video screens floated around a kind of control centre. A man hovered inside, checking monitors and reading paper aeroplane messages. The man paid them no attention as Melly brought them forward. She pushed a 42-inch Sony out of their way and led them into the control area. Leo whistled. I've got to get a room like this. The floating screen showed all sorts of television programmes. Some Jason recognised, news broadcasts mostly. But some programmes looked a little strange. Gladiators fighting, demigods battling monsters. Maybe they were movies, but they looked more like reality shows. At the far end of the sphere was a silky blue backdrop, like a cinema screen, with cameras and studio lights floating around it. The man in the centre was talking into an earpiece phone. He had a remote control in each hand and was pointing them at various screens, seemingly at random. He wore a business suit that looked like the sky, blue mostly, but dappled with clouds that changed and darkened and moved across the fabric. He looked like he was in his 60s, with a shock of white hair, but he had a ton of stage makeup on, and that smooth plastic surgery look to his face, so he appeared not really young, not really old, just wrong, like a Ken doll someone had halfway melted in a microwave. His eyes darted back and forth from screen to screen, as if he were trying to absorb everything at once. He muttered things into his phone, and his mouth kept twitching. He was either amused or crazy or both. Melly floated towards him. Ah, sir, Mr. Aeolus, these demigods. Hold it. He held up a hand to silence her and then pointed at one of the screens. Watch. It was one of those storm chaser programs where insane thrill seekers drive after tornadoes. As Jason watched, a jeep ploughed straight into a funnel cloud and got tossed into the sky. Aeolus shrieked with delight. The Disaster Channel. People do that on purpose. He turned towards Jason with a mad grin. Isn't that amazing? Let's watch it again. Sir, Melly said. This is Jason, son of... Yes, I remember, Aeolus said. You're back. How did it go? Jason hesitated. Sorry? I think you've mistaken me. No, Jason Grace, aren't you? It was... What, last year? You were on your way to fight a sea monster, I believe. I don't remember. Aeolus laughed. Must not have been a very good sea monster. No, I remember every hero who's ever come to me for aid. Odysseus, gods, he docked at my island for a month. At least you only stayed a few days. Now watch this video. These ducks get sucked straight into... Sir, Melly interrupted. 2 minutes to air. Air, Aeolus exclaimed. I love air. How do I look? Makeup? Immediately, a small tornado of brushes, blotters and cotton balls descended on Aeolus. They blurred across his face in a cloud of flesh-toned smoke until his coloration was even more gruesome than before. Wind swirled through his hair and left it sticking up like a frosted Christmas tree. Mr. Aeolus, Jason slipped off the golden backpack. We brought you these rogue storm spirits. Did you? Aeolus looked at the bag like it was a gift from a fan, something he really didn't want. Well, how nice. Leo nudged him and Jason offered the bag. Boreas sent us to capture them for you. We hope you'll accept them and stop... ordering demigods to be killed? Aeolus laughed and looked incredulously at Melly. Demigods be killed? Did I order that? Melly checked a computer tablet. Yes, sir, 15th of September. Storm spirits released by the death of Typhon. Demigods to be held responsible, etc. Yes, a general order for them all to be killed. Oh, pish, Aeolus said. I was just grumpy. Rescind that order, Melly, and, who's on guard duty? Teriyaki? Terry, take these storm spirits down to cell block 14E, will you? A harpy swooped out of nowhere, snatched the golden bag and spiralled into the abyss. Aeolus grinned at Jason. Now, sorry about that kill-on-sight business, but, gods, I really was mad, wasn't I? His face suddenly darkened, and his suit did the same, the lapels flashing with lightning. I remember now. Almost seemed like a voice was telling me to give that order. A little cold tingle on the back of my neck. Jason tensed. A cold tingle on the back of his neck. Why did that sound so familiar? A voice in your head, sir? Yes. How odd. Melly, should we kill them? No, sir, she said patiently. They just brought us the storm spirits, which makes everything all right. Of course. Aeolus laughed. Sorry, Melly. Let's send the demigods something nice. A box of chocolates, perhaps. A box of chocolates to every demigod in the world, sir? No, too expensive. Never mind. Wait, it's time. I'm on. Aeolus flew off towards the blue screen as newscast music started to play. Jason looked at Piper and Leo, who seemed just as confused as he was. Melly, he said, is he always like that? She smiled sheepishly. Well, you know what they say. If you don't like his mood, wait 5 minutes. That expression, whichever way the wind blows, that was based on him. And that thing about the sea monster, Jason said. Was I here before? Melly blushed. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I'm Mr. Aelus's new assistant. I've been with him longer than most, but still, not that long. How long do his assistants usually last? Piper asked. Oh, Melly thought for a moment. I've been doing this for 12 hours? A voice blared from floating speakers. And now, weather every 12 minutes. Here's your forecaster for Olympian weather, the OW channel, Aeolus. Lights blazed on Aeolus, who was now standing in front of the blue screen. His smile was unnaturally white, and he looked like he had so much caffeine his face was about to explode. Hello, Olympus! Aeolus, master of the winds here, with weather every 12. We'll have a low-pressure system moving over Florida today, so expect milder temperatures since Demeter wishes to spare the citrus farmers. He gestured at the blue screen, but when Jason checked the monitors, he saw that a digital image was being projected behind Aeolus, so it looked like he was standing in front of a US map with animated smiley suns and frowny storm clouds. Along the eastern seaboard. Oh, hold on. He tapped his earpiece. Sorry, folks. Poseidon is angry with Miami today, so it looks like that Florida freeze is back on. Sorry, Demeter. Over in the Midwest, I'm not sure what St. Louis did to offend Zeus, but you can expect winter storms. Boreas himself is being called down to punish the area with ice. Bad news, Missouri. No, wait. Hephaestus feels sorry for central Missouri, so you all have much more moderate temperatures and sunny skies. Aeolus kept going like that, forecasting each area of the country and changing his prediction 2 or 3 times as he got messages over his earpiece. The gods, apparently, putting in orders for various winds and weather. This can't be right, Jason whispered. Weather isn't this random. Melly smirked. And how often are the mortal weathermen right? They talk about fronts and air pressure and moisture, but the weather surprises them all the time. At least Aeolus tells us why it's so unpredictable. Very hard job, trying to appease all the gods at once. It's enough to drive anyone, She trailed off, but Jason knew what she meant. Mad. Aeolus was completely mad. And that's the weather, Aeolus concluded. See you in 12 minutes, because I'm sure it'll change. The lights shut off. The video monitors went back to random coverage, and just for a moment, Aeolus's face sagged with weariness. And then he seemed to remember he had guests, and he put a smile back on. So, you brought me some rogue storm spirits, Aeolus said. I suppose, thanks, and did you want something else? I assume so. Demigods always do. Melly said, Sir, this is Zeus's son. Yes, I know that. I said I remembered him from before. But, sir, they're here from Olympus. Aeolus looked stunned. Then he laughed so abruptly Jason almost jumped into the chasm. You mean you're here on behalf of your father this time? Finally! I knew they would send someone to renegotiate my contract. What? Jason asked. Oh, thank goodness. Aeolus sighed with relief. It's been, 3,000 years since Zeus made me master of the winds. Not that I'm ungrateful, of course, but really my contract is so vague. Obviously I'm immortal, but master of the winds, what does that mean? I'm a nature spirit, am I? A demigod? A god? I want to be god of the winds because the benefits are so much better. Can we start with that? Jason looked at his friends, mystified. Dude, Leo said, you think we're here to promote you? You are then, Aeolus grinned. His business suit turned completely blue, not a cloud in the fabric. Marvellous. I think I've shown quite a bit of initiative with the Weather Channel, eh? And, of course, I'm in the press all the time, so many books have been written about me. Into thin air, up in the air, gone with the wind. I don't think those are about you, Jason said, before he noticed Melly shaking her head. Nonsense, Aeolus said. Melly, they're biographies of me, aren't they? Absolutely, sir, she squeaked. There, you see, I don't read. Who has time? But obviously, the mortals love me, so we'll change my official title to God of the Winds. Then, about salary and, staff. Sir, Jason said, we're not from Olympus. Aeolus blinked. But I'm the son of Zeus, yes, Jason said, but we're not here to negotiate your contract. We're here on a quest. We need your help. Aeolus's expression hardened. Like last time, like every hero who comes here. Demigods, it's always about you, isn't it? Sir, please, I don't remember last time, but if you helped me once before, I'm always helping. Well, sometimes I'm destroying, but mostly I'm helping. Sometimes I'm asked to do both at the same time. Why, Aeneas, the first of your kind. My kind, Jason asked. You mean demigods? Oh, please, Aeolus said. I mean your line of demigods. You know, Aeneas, son of Venus, the only surviving hero of Troy. When the Greeks burned down his city, he escaped to Italy, where he found the kingdom that would eventually become Rome. Blah, blah, blah. That's what I meant. I don't get it, Jason admitted. Aeolus rolled his eyes. The point being, I was thrown in the middle of the conflict too. Juno calls up, "Oh, Aeolus, destroy Aeneas' ships for me." I don't like him. Then Neptune says, "No, you don't. That's my territory. Calm the winds." Then Juno is like, "No, wreck the ships, or I'll tell Jupiter you're uncooperative." Do you think it's easy juggling requests like that? No, Jason said. I guess not. And don't get me started on Amelia Earhart. I'm still getting angry calls from Olympus about knocking her out of the sky. We just want information, Piper said in her most calming voice. We hear you know everything. Aeolus straightened his lapels and looked slightly mollified. Well, that's true, of course. For instance, I know that this business here, he waggled his fingers at the three of them, this harebrained scheme of Juno's to bring you all together is likely to end in bloodshed. As for you, Piper McLean, I know your father is in serious trouble. He held out his hand, and a scrap of paper fluttered into his grasp. It was a photo of Piper with a guy who must have been her dad. His face did look familiar. Jason was pretty sure he'd seen him in some movies. Piper took the photo. Her hands were shaking. This is from his wallet. Yes, Aeolus said. All things lost in the wind eventually come to me. The photo blew away when the Earthborn captured him. The what? Piper asked. Aeolus waved aside the question and narrowed his eyes at Leo. Now you, son of Hephaestus, yes, I see your future. Another paper fell into the wind god's hands, an old tattered drawing done in crayons. Leo took it as if it might be coated in poison. He staggered backwards. Leo, Jason said. What is it? Something I drew when I was a kid. He folded it quickly and put it in his coat. It's nothing. Aeolus laughed. Really? Just the key to your success. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, you wanted information. Are you sure about that? Sometimes information can be dangerous. He smiled at Jason like he was issuing a challenge. Behind him, Melly shook her head in warning. Yeah, Jason said. We need to find the lair of Enceladus. Aeolus's smile melted. The giant? Why would you want to go there? He's horrible. He doesn't even watch my program. Piper held up the photo. Aeolus, he's got my father. We need to rescue him and find out where Hera is, where she's being held captive. Now, that's impossible, Aeolus said. Even I can't see that, and believe me, I've tried. There's a veil of magic over Hera's location, very strong, impossible to locate. She's at a place called the Wolf House, Jason said. Hold on. Aeolus put a hand on his forehead and closed his eyes. I'm getting something. Yes, she's at a place called the Wolf House. Sadly, I don't know where that is. Enceladus does, Piper persisted. If you help us find him, we could get the location of the goddess. Yeah, Leo said, catching on. And if we save her, she'd be really grateful to you. And Zeus might promote you, Jason finished. Aeolus's eyebrows crept up. A promotion? And all you want from me is the giant's location? Well, if you could get us there too, Jason amended, that would be great. Melly clapped her hands in excitement. Oh, he could do that. He often sends helpful winds. Melly, quiet, Aeolus snapped. I have half a mind to fire you for letting these people in under false pretences. Her face paled. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. It wasn't her fault, Jason said. But about that help. Aeolus tilted his head as if thinking, and then Jason realised the Wind Lord was listening to voices in his earpiece. Well, Zeus approves, Aeolus muttered. He says it would be better if you could avoid saving her until after the weekend, because he has a big party planned. Ow! That's Aphrodite yelling at him, reminding him that the solstice starts at dawn. She says I should help you. And Hephaestus, yes, very rare they agree on anything. Hold on. Jason smiled at his friends. Finally, they were having some good luck. Their godly parents were standing up for them. Back towards the entrance, Jason heard a loud belch. Coach Hedge waddled in from the lobby, grass all over his face. Melly saw him coming across the makeshift floor and caught her breath. Who is that? Jason stifled a cough. That's just Coach Hedge, Gleason Hedge. He's our, Jason wasn't sure what to call him. Teacher, friend, problem. Our guide. He's so goatly, Melly murmured. Behind her, Piper poofed out her cheeks, pretending to vomit. What's up, guys? Hedge trotted over. Wow, nice place. Oh, sod, squares. Coach, you just ate, Jason said. Are we? And we're using the sod as a floor. This is a Melly. An aura, Hedge smiled winningly. Beautiful as a summer breeze. Melly blushed. And Aeolus here was just about to help us, Jason said. Yes, the Wind Lord muttered. It seems so. You'll find Enceladus on Mount Diablo. Devil Mountain, Leo asked. That doesn't sound good. I remember that place, Piper said. I went there once with my dad. It's just east of San Francisco Bay. The Bay Area again? The coach shook his head. Not good at all. Now, Aeolus began to smile. As to getting you there. Suddenly his face went slack. He bent over and tapped his earpiece, as if it were malfunctioning. When he straightened again, his eyes were wild. Despite the makeup, he looked like an old man, an old, very frightened man. She hasn't spoken to me for centuries. I can't. Yes, I understand. He swallowed, regarding Jason as if he had suddenly turned into a giant cockroach. I'm sorry, son of Jupiter. New orders. You all have to die. Melly squeaked. But, sir, Zeus said to help them. Aphrodite, Hephaestus. Melly, Aeolus snapped, your job is already on the line. Besides, there are some orders that transcend even the wishes of the gods, especially when it comes to the forces of nature. Whose orders? Jason said. Zeus will fire you if you don't help us. I doubt it. Aeolus flicked his wrist, and far below them a cell door opened in the pit. Jason could hear storm spirits screaming out of it, spiraling up towards them, howling for blood. Even Zeus understands the order of things, Aeolus said, and if she is waking, by all the gods she cannot be denied. Goodbye, heroes. I'm terribly sorry, but I'll have to make this quick. I'm back on the air in 4 minutes. Jason summoned his sword. Coach Hedge pulled out his club. Melly the Aura yelled, No! She dived at their feet just as the storm spirits hit with hurricane force, blasting the floor to pieces, shredding the carpet samples and marble and lino into what should have been lethal projectiles, had Melly's robes not spread out like a shield and absorbed the brunt of the impact. The 5 of them fell into the pit, and Aeolus screamed above them, Melly, you are so fired! Quick, Melly yelled. Son of Zeus, do you have any power over the air? A little. Then help me, or you're all dead. Melly grabbed his hand, and an electric charge went through Jason's arm. He understood what she needed. They had to control their fall and head for one of the open tunnels. The storm spirits were following them down, closing rapidly, bringing with them a cloud of deadly shrapnel. Jason grabbed Piper's hand. Group hug. Hedge, Leo and Piper tried to huddle together, hanging on to Jason and Melly as they fell. This is not good, Leo yelled. Bring it on, gas bags, Hedge yelled up to the storm spirits. I'll pulverize you. He's magnificent, Melly sighed. Concentrate, Jason prompted. Right, she said. They channeled the wind, so their fall became more of a tumble into the nearest open chute. Still, they slammed into the tunnel at painful speed and went rolling over each other down a steep vent that was not designed for people. There was no way they could stop. Melly's robes billowed around her. Jason and the others clung to her desperately, and they began to slow down, but the storm spirits were screaming into the tunnel behind them. Can't hold long, Melly warned. Stay together. When the winds hit. You're doing great, Melly, Hedge said. My own mama was an aura, you know. She couldn't have been doing this better herself. Iris messaged me, Melly pleaded. Hedge winked. Could you guys plan your date later? Piper screamed. Look! Behind them, the tunnel was turning dark. Jason could feel his ears pop as the pressure built. Can't hold them, Melly warned, but I'll try to shield you. Do you one more favour? Thanks, Melly, Jason said. I hope you get a new job. She smiled and then dissolved, wrapping them in a warm, gentle breeze. Then the real winds hit, shooting them into the sky so fast, Jason blacked out. Chapter 39. Piper. Piper dreamed she was on the Wilderness School dorm roof. The desert night was cold, but she brought blankets, and with Jason next to her, she didn't need any more warmth. The air smelled of sage and burning mesquite. On the horizon, the spring mountains loomed like jagged black teeth, the dim glow of Las Vegas behind them. The stars were so bright, Piper had been afraid they wouldn't be able to see the meteor shower. She didn't want Jason to think she'd dragged him up here on false pretenses, even though her pretenses had been totally false. But the meteors did not disappoint. One streaked across the sky almost every minute, a line of white, yellow or blue fire. Piper was sure her grandpa Tom would have some Cherokee myth to explain them, but at the moment she was busy creating her own story. Jason took her hand, finally, and pointed as 2 meteors skipped across the atmosphere and formed a cross. Wow, he said. I can't believe Leo didn't want to see this. Actually, I didn't invite him, Piper said casually. Jason smiled. Oh yeah? You ever feel like 3 would be a crowd? Yeah, Jason admitted. Like right now. You know how much trouble we'd get in if we get caught up here. Oh, I'd make up something, Piper said. I can be very persuasive. So, you want to dance or what? He laughed. His eyes were amazing, and his smile was even better in the starlight. With no music, at night, on a rooftop. Sounds dangerous. I'm a dangerous girl. That I can believe. He stood and offered her his hand. They slow danced a few steps, but it quickly turned into a kiss. Piper almost couldn't kiss him again, because she was too busy smiling. Then her dream changed, or maybe she was dead in the underworld because she found herself back in Medea's department store. Please, let this be a dream, she murmured, and not my eternal punishment. No, dear, said a woman's honey-sweet voice. No punishment. Piper turned, afraid she'd see Medea, but a different woman stood next to her, browsing through the 50% off rack. The woman was gorgeous. Shoulder-length hair, a graceful neck, perfect features, and an amazing figure tucked into jeans and a snowy white top. Piper had seen her share of actresses. Most of her dad's dates were knockout beautiful. But this lady was different. She was elegant without trying, fashionable without effort, stunning without makeup. After seeing Airless with his silly facelifts and cosmetics, Piper thought this woman looked even more astonishing. There was nothing artificial about her. Yet, as Piper watched, the woman's appearance changed. Piper couldn't decide the colour of her eyes, or the exact colour of her hair. The woman became more and more beautiful, as if her image were aligning itself to Piper's thoughts, getting as close as possible to Piper's ideal of beauty. Aphrodite, Piper said. Mum? The goddess smiled. You're only dreaming, my sweet. If anyone wonders, I wasn't here, okay? Piper wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but they all crowded together in her head. Aphrodite held up a turquoise dress. Piper thought it looked awesome, but the goddess made a face. This isn't my colour, is it? Pity, it's cute. Medea really does have some lovely things here. This building exploded, Piper stammered. I saw it. Yes, Aphrodite agreed. I suppose that's why everything's on sale. Just a memory now. And I'm sorry to pull you out of your other dream. Much more pleasant, I know. Piper's face burned. She didn't know whether she was more angry or embarrassed, but mostly she felt hollow with disappointment. It wasn't real. It never even happened. So why do I remember it so vividly? Aphrodite smiled. Because you are my daughter, Piper. You see possibilities, much more vividly than others. You see what could be. And it still might be. Don't give up. Unfortunately, the goddess gestured around the department store. You have other trials to face first. Medea will be back, along with many other enemies. The doors of death have opened. What do you mean? Aphrodite winked at her. You're a smart one, Piper. You know. A cold feeling settled over her. The sleeping woman. The one Medea and Midas called their patron. She's managed to open a new entrance from the underworld. She's letting the dead escape back into the world. And not just any dead. The worst, the most powerful, the ones most likely to hate the gods. The monsters are coming back from Tartarus the same way, Piper guessed. That's why they don't stay disintegrated. Yes, their patron, as you call her, has a special relationship with Tartarus, the spirit of the pit. Aphrodite held up a gold sequined top. No, this would make me look ridiculous. Piper laughed uneasily. You can't look anything but perfect. You're sweet, Aphrodite said, but beauty is about finding the right fit, the most natural fit. To be perfect, you have to feel perfect about yourself. Avoid trying to be something you're not. For a goddess, that's especially hard. We can change so easily. My dad thought you were perfect. Piper's voice quavered. He never got over you. Aphrodite's gaze became distant. Yes, Tristan, oh, he was amazing. So gentle and kind, funny and handsome. Yet he had so much sadness inside. Could we please not talk about him in the past tense? I'm sorry, dear. I didn't want to leave your father, of course. It's always so hard, but it was for the best. If he had realised who I actually was. Wait, he didn't know you were a goddess? Of course not. Aphrodite sounded offended. I wouldn't do that to him. For most mortals, that's simply too hard to accept. It can ruin their lives. Ask your friend Jason. Lovely boy, by the way. His poor mother was destroyed when she found out she'd fallen in love with Zeus. No, it was much better Tristan believed that I was a mortal woman who left him without explanation. Better a bittersweet memory than an immortal, unattainable goddess. Which brings me to an important matter. She opened her hand and showed Piper a glowing glass vial of pink liquid. This is one of Medea's kinder mixtures. It erases only recent memories. When you save your father, if you can save him, you should give him this. Piper couldn't believe what she was hearing. You want me to dope my dad? You want me to make him forget what he's been through? Aphrodite held up the vial. The liquid cast a pink glow over her face. Your father acts confident, Piper, but he walks a fine line between two worlds. He's worked his whole life to deny the old stories about gods and spirits, yet he fears those stories might be real. He fears that he shut off an important part of himself, and someday it will destroy him. Now he's been captured by a giant. He's living a nightmare. Even if he survives, even if he has to spend the rest of his life with those memories, knowing that gods and spirits walk the earth, it will shatter him. That's what our enemy hopes for. She will break him, and thus break your spirit. Piper wanted to shout that Aphrodite was wrong. Her dad was the strongest person she knew. Piper would never take his memories the way Hera had taken Jason's. But somehow, she couldn't stay angry with Aphrodite. She remembered what her dad had said months ago, at the beach at Big Sur. If I really believed in ghost country, or animal spirits, or Greek gods, I don't think I could sleep at night. I'd always be looking for somebody to blame. Now Piper wanted someone to blame too. Who is she? Piper demanded. The one controlling the giants. Aphrodite pursed her lips. She moved to the next rack, which held battered armour and ripped togas, but Aphrodite looked through them as if they were designer outfits. You have a strong will, she mused. I am never given much credit among the gods. My children are laughed at. They're dismissed as conceited and shallow. Some of them are. Aphrodite laughed. Granted. Perhaps I'm conceited and shallow too sometimes. A girl has to indulge. Oh, this is nice. She picked up a burnt and stained bronze breastplate and held it up for Piper to see. No? No, Piper said. Are you going to answer my question? Patience, my sweet, the goddess said. My point is that love is the most powerful motivator in the world. It spurs mortals to greatness. Their noblest, bravest acts are done for love. Piper pulled out her dagger and studied its reflective blade, like Helen starting the Trojan War. Ah, Catoptris, Aphrodite smiled. I'm glad you found it. I get so much flack for that war, but honestly, Paris and Helen were a cute couple, and the heroes of that war are immortal now, at least in the memories of men. Love is powerful, Piper. It can bring even the gods to their knees. I told this to my son, Aeneas, when he escaped from Troy. He thought he had failed. He thought he was a loser, but he travelled to Italy and became the forebear of Rome. Exactly. You see, Piper, my children can be quite powerful. You can be quite powerful, because my lineage is unique. I am closer to the beginning of creation than any other Olympian. Piper struggled to remember about Aphrodite's birth. Didn't you rise from the sea, standing on a seashell? The goddess laughed. That painter Botticelli has quite an imagination. I never stood on a seashell, thank you very much. But yes, I rose from the sea. The first beings to rise from chaos were the earth and sky, Gaia and Uranus. When their son, the Titan Kronos, killed Uranus by chopping him to pieces with a scythe, Piper remembered. Aphrodite wrinkled her nose. Yes, the pieces of Uranus fell into the sea. His immortal essence created sea foam. And from that foam, you were born. I remember now, so you're the last child of Uranus, who was greater than the gods or the Titans. So in a strange way, I am the eldest Olympian god. As I said, love is a powerful force, and you, my daughter, are much more than a pretty face, which is why you already know who is waking the giants, and who has the power to open the doors into the deepest parts of the earth. Aphrodite waited, as if she could sense Piper slowly putting together the pieces of a puzzle, which made a dreadful picture. Gaia, Piper said, the earth itself. That's our enemy. She hoped Aphrodite would say no, but the goddess kept her eyes on the rack of tattered armour. She has slumbered for eons, but she is slowly waking. Even asleep, she is powerful, but once she wakes, we will be doomed. You must defeat the giants before that happens, and lull Gaia back into her slumber. Otherwise, the rebellion has only begun. The dead will continue to rise. Monsters will regenerate with even greater speed. The giants will lay waste to the birthplace of the gods, and if they do that, all civilization will burn. But Gaia, Mother Earth, do not underestimate her, Aphrodite warned. She is a cruel deity. She orchestrated Uranus' death. She gave Kronos the sickle and urged him to kill his own father. While the Titans ruled the world, she slumbered in peace. But when the gods overthrew them, Gaia woke again in all her anger and gave birth to a new race, the giants, to destroy Olympus once and for all. And it's happening again, Piper said. The rise of the giants. Aphrodite nodded. Now you know. What will you do? Me? Piper clenched her fists. What am I supposed to do? Put on a pretty dress and sweet-talk Gaia into going back to sleep? I wish that would work, Aphrodite said. But no, you will have to find your own strengths and fight for what you love. Like my favoured ones, Helen and Paris. Like my son, Aeneas. Helen and Paris died, Piper said. And Aeneas became a hero, the goddess countered. The first great hero of Rome. The result will depend on you, Piper, but I will tell you this. The 7 greatest demigods must be gathered to defeat the giants, and that effort will not succeed without you. When the two sides meet, you will be the mediator. You will determine whether there is friendship or bloodshed. What two sides? Piper's vision began to dim. You must wake soon, my child, said the goddess. I do not always agree with Hera, but she's taken a bold risk, and I agree it must be done. Zeus has kept the two sides apart for too long. Only together will you have the power to save Olympus. Now wake, and I hope you like the clothes I picked out. What clothes? Piper demanded, but the dream faded to black. Chapter 40. Piper. Piper woke at a table at a sidewalk cafe. For a second, she thought she was still dreaming. It was a sunny morning. The air was brisk but not unpleasant for sitting outside. At the other tables, a mix of bicyclists, business people and college kids sat chatting and drinking coffee. She could smell eucalyptus trees. Lots of foot traffic passed in front of quaint little shops. The street was lined with bottle-brush trees and blooming azaleas, as if winter was a foreign concept. In other words, she was in California. Her friends sat in chairs around her, all of them with their hands calmly folded across their chests, dozing pleasantly, and they all had new clothes on. Piper looked down at her own outfit and gasped. Mother! She yelled louder than she meant. Jason flinched, bumping the table with his knees, and then all of them were awake. What? Hedge demanded. Fight who? Where? Falling! Leo grabbed the table. No, not falling. Where are we? Jason blinked, trying to get his bearings. He focused on Piper and made a little choking sound. What are you wearing? Piper probably blushed. She was wearing the turquoise dress she'd seen in her dream, with black leggings and black leather boots. She had on her favourite silver charm bracelet, even though she'd left that back home in LA, and her old snowboarding jacket from her dad, which amazingly went with the outfit pretty well. She pulled out Catoptris, and judging from the reflection in the blade, she got her hair done too. It's nothing, she said. It's my, She remembered Aphrodite's warning not to mention that they'd talked. It's nothing. Leo grinned. Aphrodite strikes again, huh? You're going to be the best-dressed warrior in town, beauty queen. Hey, Leo, Jason nudged his arm. You look at yourself recently? What? Oh. All of them had been given a makeover. Leo was wearing pinstripe trousers, black leather shoes, a white collarless shirt with suspenders, and his tool belt, Ray-Ban sunglasses and a pork pie hat. Good, Leo. Piper tried not to laugh. I think my dad wore that to his last premiere, minus the tool belt. Hey, shut up. I think he looks good, said Coach Hedge. Course, I look better. The satyr was a pastel nightmare. Aphrodite had given him a baggy canary yellow zoot suit with two-tone shoes that fitted over his hooves. He had a matching yellow broad-brimmed hat, a rose-coloured shirt, a baby blue tie and a blue carnation in his lapel, which Hedge sniffed and then ate. Well, Jason said, at least your mum overlooked me. Piper knew that wasn't exactly true. Looking at him, her heart did a little tap dance. Jason was dressed simply in jeans and a clean purple t-shirt, like he'd worn at the Grand Canyon. He had new trainers on, and his hair was newly trimmed. His eyes were the same colour as the sky. Aphrodite's message was clear. This one needs no improvement. And Piper agreed. Anyway, she said uncomfortably, how did we get here? Oh, that would be Melly, Hedge said, chewing happily on his carnation. Those winds shot us halfway across the country, I'd guess. We would have been smashed flat on impact, but Melly's last gift, a nice soft breeze, cushioned our fall. And she got fired for us, Leo said. Man, we suck. She'll be fine, Hedge said. Besides, she couldn't help herself. I've got that effect on nymphs. I'll send her a message when we're through with this quest and help her figure something out. That is one aura I could settle down with and raise a herd of baby goats. I'm going to be sick, Piper said. Anyone else want a coffee? Coffee! Hedge's grin was stained blue from the flour. I love coffee. Jason said, but money? Our packs? Piper looked down. Their packs were at their feet, and everything seemed to still be there. She reached into her coat pocket and felt two things she hadn't expected. One was a wad of cash. The other was a glass vial, the amnesia potion. She left the vial in her pocket and brought out the money. Leo whistled. Allowance? Piper, your mum rocks. Waitress, Hedge called. 6 double espressos and whatever these guys want. Put it on the girls tab. It didn't take them long to figure out where they were. The menu said Café Verve, Walnut Creek, California, and according to the waitress, it was 9 a.m. on the 21st of December, the winter solstice, which gave them 3 hours until Enceladus' deadline. They didn't have to wonder where Mount Diablo was either. They could see it on the horizon, right at the edge of the street. After the Rockies, Mount Diablo didn't look very large, nor was it covered in snow. It seemed downright peaceful, its golden creases marbled with grey-green trees. But size was deceptive with mountains. Piper knew. It was probably much bigger up close, and appearances were deceptive too. Here they were, back in California, supposedly her home, with sunny skies, mild weather, laid-back people and a plate of chocolate chip scones with coffee. And only a few miles away, somewhere on that peaceful mountain, a super-powerful, super-evil giant was about to have her father for lunch. Leo pulled something out of his pocket. The old crayon drawing Aeolus had given him. Aphrodite must have thought it was important if she'd magically transferred it to his new outfit. "What is that?" Piper asked. Leo folded it up gingerly again and put it away. "Nothing. You don't want to see my kindergarten artwork." "It's more than that," Jason guessed. "Aeolus said it was the key to our success." Leo shook his head. "Not today. He was talking about later." "How can you be sure?" Piper asked. "Trust me," Leo said. "Now, what's our game plan?" Coach Hedge belched. He'd already had 3 espressos and a plate of donuts, along with 2 napkins and another flower from the vase on the table. He would have eaten the silverware except Piper had slapped his hand. "Climb the mountain," Hedge said. "Kill everything except Piper's dad. Leave." "Thank you, General Eisenhower," Jason grumbled. "Hey, I'm just saying." "Guys," Piper said, "there's more you need to know." It was tricky because she couldn't mention her mum, but she told them she'd figured some things out in her dreams. She told them about their real enemy, Gaia. "Gaia?" Leo shook his head. "Isn't that Mother Nature? She's supposed to have, like, flowers in her hair and birds singing around her and deer and rabbits doing her laundry." "Leo, that's Snow White," Piper said. "Okay, but listen, Cupcake." Coach Hedge dabbed the espresso out of his goatee. "Piper's telling us some serious stuff here. Gaia's no softy. I'm not even sure I could take her." Leo whistled. "Really?" Hedge nodded. "This Earth lady, she and her old man, the Sky, were nasty customers." "Uranus," Piper said. She couldn't help looking up at the blue sky, wondering if it had eyes. "Right," Hedge said. "So, Uranus, he's not the best dad. He froze their first kids, the Cyclopses, into Tartarus. That makes Gaia mad, but she bides her time. Then they have another set of kids, the 12 Titans, and Gaia is afraid they'll get thrown into prison too, so she goes up to her son, Kronos." "The big bad dude," Leo said. "The one they defeated last summer." "Right, and Gaia's the one who gives him the scythe and tells him, 'Hey, why don't I call your dad down here? And while he's talking to me, distracted, you can cut him to pieces. Then you can take over the world. Wouldn't that be great?'" Nobody said anything. Piper's chocolate chip scone didn't look so appetizing anymore. Even though she'd heard the story before, she still couldn't quite get her mind around it. She tried to imagine a kid so messed up he would kill his own dad just for power. Then she imagined a mum so messed up she would convince her son to do it. Definitely not Snow White, she decided. "Nah, Kronos was a bad guy," Hedge said. "But Gaia is literally the mother of all bad guys. She's old and powerful, so huge that it's hard for her to be fully conscious. Most of the time she sleeps, and that's the way we like her, snoring." "But she talked to me," Leo said. "How can she be asleep?" Gleason brushed crumbs off his canary yellow lapel. He was on his 6th espresso now, and his pupils were as big as quarters. Even in her sleep, part of her consciousness is active, dreaming, keeping watch, doing little things like causing volcanoes to explode and monsters to rise. Even now, she's not fully awake. Believe me, you don't want to see her fully awake. "But she's getting more powerful," Piper said. "She's causing the giants to rise, and if their king comes back, this guy, Porphyrion, he'll raise any army to destroy the gods," Jason put in, "starting with Hera. It'll be another war, and Gaia will wake up fully." Gleason nodded. "Which is why it's a good idea for us to stay off the ground as much as possible." Leo looked warily at Mount Diablo. "So, climbing a mountain, that would be bad." Piper's heart sank. First, she'd been asked to betray her friends. Now they were trying to help her rescue her dad, even though they knew they were walking into a trap. The idea of fighting a giant had been scary enough, but the idea that Gaia was behind it, a force more powerful than a god or titan. "Guys, I can't ask you to do this," Piper said. "This is too dangerous." "You kidding?" Gleason belched and showed them his blue carnation smile. "Who's ready to beat stuff up?" Chapter 41. Leo. Leo hoped the taxi could take them all the way to the top. No such luck. The cab made lurching, grinding sounds as it climbed the mountain road, and halfway up they found the ranger's station closed, a chain blocking the way. "Far as I can go," the cabbie said. "You sure about this? Gonna be a long walk back and my car's acting funny. I can't wait for you." "We're sure." Leo was the first one out. He had a bad feeling about what was wrong with the cab, and when he looked down he saw he was right. The wheels were sinking into the road like it was made of quicksand. Not fast, just enough to make the driver think he had a transmission problem or a bad axle, but Leo knew different. The road was hard-packed earth. No reason at all it should have been soft, but already Leo's shoes were starting to sink. Gaia was messing with them. While his friends got out, Leo paid the cabbie. He was generous. Heck, why not? It was Aphrodite's money. Plus, he had a feeling he might never be coming off this mountain. "Keep the change," he said, "and get out of here quick." The driver didn't argue. Soon all they could see was his dust trail. The view from the mountain was pretty amazing. The whole inland valley around Mount Diablo was a patchwork of towns, grids of tree-lined streets and nice middle-class suburbs, shops and schools. All these normal people living normal lives, the kind Leo had never known. "That's Concord," Jason said, pointing to the north. "Walnut Creek below us. To the south, Danville, past those hills, and that way." He pointed west where a ridge of golden hills held back a layer of fog, like the rim of a bowl. "That's the Berkeley Hills. The East Bay. Past that, San Francisco." "Jason," Piper touched his arm, "you remember something? You've been here?" "Yes. No." He gave her an anguished look. "It just seems important." "That's Titan land." Coach Hedge nodded towards the west. "Bad place, Jason. Trust me, this is as close to Frisco as we want to get." But Jason looked towards the foggy basin with such longing that Leo felt uneasy. Why did Jason seem so connected with that place? A place Hedge said was evil, full of bad magic and old enemies. What if Jason came from here? Everybody kept hinting Jason was an enemy, that his arrival at Camp Half-Blood was a dangerous mistake. No, Leo thought. Ridiculous. Jason was their friend. Leo tried to move his foot, but his heels were now completely embedded in the ground. "Hey guys," he said, "let's keep moving." The others noticed the problem. "Gaia is stronger here," Hedge grumbled. He popped his hooves free from his shoes and then handed the shoes to Leo. "Keep those for me, Valdez. They're nice." Leo snorted. "Yes, sir, coach. Would you like them polished?" "That's varsity thinking, Valdez." Hedge nodded approvingly. "But first, we'd better hike up this mountain while we still can." "How do we know where the giant is?" Piper asked. Jason pointed towards the peak. Drifting across the summit was a plume of smoke. From a distance, Leo had thought it was a cloud, but it wasn't. Something was burning. "Smoke equals fire," Jason said. "We better hurry." The wilderness school had taken Leo on several forced marches. He thought he was in good shape, but climbing a mountain when the earth was trying to swallow his feet was like jogging on a flypaper treadmill. In no time, Leo had rolled up the sleeves on his collarless shirt, even though the wind was cold and sharp. He wished Aphrodite had given him walking shorts and some more comfortable shoes, but he was grateful for the Ray-Bans that kept the sun out of his eyes. He slipped his hands into his tool belt and started summoning supplies. Gears, a tiny wrench, some strips of bronze. As he walked, he built, not really thinking about it, just fiddling with pieces. By the time they neared the crest of the mountain, Leo was the most fashionably dressed, sweaty, dirty hero ever. His hands were covered in machine grease. The little object he'd made was like a wind-up toy, the kind that rattles and walks across a coffee table. He wasn't sure what it could do, but he slipped it into his tool belt. He missed his army coat with all its pockets. Even more than that, he missed Festus. He could use a fire-breathing bronze dragon right now, but Leo knew Festus would not be coming back, at least not in his old form. He patted the picture in his pocket, the crayon drawing he'd made at the picnic table under the pecan tree when he was 5 years old. He remembered Tia Khalida singing as he worked, and how upset he'd been when the winds had snatched the picture away. "It isn't time yet, little hero," Tia Khalida had told him. "Someday you'll have your quest, you'll find your destiny, and your hard journey will finally make sense." Now Aeolus had returned the picture. Leo knew that meant his destiny was getting close, but the journey was as frustrating as this stupid mountain. Every time Leo thought they'd reached the summit, it turned out to be just another ridge with an even higher one behind it. First things first, Leo told himself. Survive today, figure out crayon drawing of destiny later. Finally, Jason crouched behind a wall of rock. He gestured for the others to do the same. Leo crawled up next to him. Piper had to pull Coach Hedge down. "I don't want to get my outfit dirty," Hedge complained. "Shh," Piper said. Reluctantly, the satyr knelt. Just over the ridge, where they were hiding in the shadow of the mountain's final crest, was a forested depression about the size of a football field, where the giant Enceladus had set up camp. Trees had been cut down to make a towering purple bonfire. The outer rim of the clearing was littered with extra logs and construction equipment. An earth mover, a big crane thing with rotating blades at the end like an electric shaver. Must be a tree harvester, Leo thought, and a long metal column with an axe blade, like a sideways guillotine, a hydraulic axe. Why a giant needed construction equipment, Leo wasn't sure. He didn't see how the creature in front of him could even fit in the driver's seat. The giant Enceladus was so large, so horrible, Leo didn't want to look at him. But he forced himself to focus on the monster. To start with, he was 30 feet tall, easily as tall as the treetops. Leo was sure the giant could have seen them behind their ridge, but he seemed intent on the weird purple bonfire, circling it and chanting under his breath. From the waist up, the giant appeared humanoid, his muscular chest clad in bronze armour, decorated with flame designs. His arms were completely ripped. Each of his biceps was bigger than Leo. His skin was bronze but sooty with ash. His face was crudely shaped, like a half-finished clay figure, but his eyes glowed white and his hair was matted in shaggy dreadlocks down to his shoulders, braided with bones. From the waist down, he was even more terrifying. His legs were scaly green with claws instead of feet, like the forelegs of a dragon. In his hand, Enceladus held a spear the size of a flagpole. Every so often he dipped it into the fire, turning the metal molten red. "Okay," Coach Hedge whispered. "Here's the plan." Leo elbowed him. "You're not changing him and charging him alone." "Oh, come on." Piper choked back a sob. "Look." Just visible on the other side of the bonfire was a man tied to a post. His head slumped like he was unconscious, so Leo couldn't make out his face, but Piper didn't seem to have any doubts. "Dad," she said. Leo swallowed. He wished this were a Tristan McLean movie. Then Piper's dad would be faking unconsciousness. He'd untie his bonds and knock out the giant with some cleverly hidden anti-giant gas. Heroic music would start to play, and Tristan McLean would make his amazing escape, running away in slow motion while the mountainside exploded behind him. But this wasn't a movie. Tristan McLean was half dead and about to be eaten. The only people who could stop it, 3 fashionably dressed teenage demigods and a megalomaniac goat. "There's 4 of us," Hedge whispered urgently, "and only 1 of him." "Did you miss the fact that he's 30 feet tall?" Leo asked. "Okay," Hedge said. "So you, me, and Jason distract him. Piper sneaks around and frees her dad." They all looked at Jason. "What?" Jason asked. "I'm not the leader." "Yes," Piper said. "You are." They'd never really talked about it, but no one disagreed, not even Hedge. Coming this far had been a team effort, but when it came to a life and death decision, Leo knew Jason was the one to ask. Even if he had no memory, Jason had a kind of balance to him. You could just tell he'd been in battles before, and he knew how to keep his cool. Leo wasn't exactly the trusting type, but he trusted Jason with his life. "I hate to say it," Jason sighed, "but Coach Hedge is right. A distraction is Piper's best chance." Not a good chance, Leo thought. Not even a survivable chance. Just their best chance. They couldn't sit there all day and talk about it, though. It had to be close to noon, the giant's deadline, and the ground was still trying to pull them down. Leo's knees had already sunk 2 inches into the earth. Leo looked at the construction equipment and got a crazy idea. He brought out the little toy he'd made on the climb, and he realised what it could do. If he was lucky, which he almost never was. "Let's boogie," he said, "before I come to my senses." Chapter 42. Leo. The plan went wrong almost immediately. Piper scrambled along the ridge, trying to keep her head down, while Leo, Jason and Coach Hedge walked straight into the clearing. Jason summoned his golden lance. He brandished it over his head and yelled, "Giant!" which sounded pretty good, and a lot more confident than Leo could have managed. He was thinking more along the lines of, "We are pathetic ants, don't kill us." Enceladus stopped chanting at the flames. He turned towards them and grinned, revealing fangs like a saber-toothed tiger's. "Well," the giant rumbled, "what a nice surprise." Leo didn't like the sound of that. His hand closed on his wind-up gadget. He stepped sideways, edging his way towards the bulldozer. Coach Hedge shouted, "Let the movie star go, you big ugly cupcake, or I'm going to plant my hoof right up your—" "Coach," Jason said, "shut up." Enceladus roared with laughter. "I've forgotten how funny satyrs are. When we rule the world, I think I'll keep your kind around. You can entertain me while I eat all the other mortals." "Is that a compliment?" Hedge frowned at Leo. "I don't think that was a compliment." Enceladus opened his mouth wide, and his teeth began to glow. "Scatter!" Leo yelled. Jason and Hedge dived to the left as the giant blew fire, a furnace blast so hot even Festus would have been jealous. Leo dodged behind the bulldozer, wound up his homemade device and dropped it into the driver's seat. Then he ran to the right, heading for the tree harvester. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jason rise and charge the giant. Coach Hedge ripped off his canary yellow jacket, which was now on fire, and bleated angrily, "I like that outfit!" And then he raised his club and charged too. Before they could get very far, Enceladus slammed his spear against the ground. The entire mountain shook. The shockwave sent Leo sprawling. He blinked, momentarily stunned. Through a haze of grass fire and bitter smoke, he saw Jason staggering to his feet on the other side of the clearing. Coach Hedge was knocked out cold. He'd fallen forward and hit his head on a log. His furry hindquarters were sticking straight up, with his canary yellow trousers around his knees, a view Leo really didn't need. The giant bellowed, "I see you, Piper McLean." He turned and blew fire at a line of bushes at Leo's right. Piper ran into the clearing like a flushed quail, the underbrush burning behind her. Enceladus laughed. "I'm happy you've arrived, and you brought me my prizes." Leo's gut twisted. This was the moment Piper had warned them about. They'd played right into Enceladus's hands. The giant must have read Leo's expression, because he laughed even louder. "That's right, son of Hephaestus. I didn't expect you all to stay alive this long, but it doesn't matter. By bringing you here, Piper McLean has sealed the deal. If she betrays you, I'm as good as my word. She can take her father and go. What do I care about a movie star?" Leo could see Piper's dad more clearly now. He wore a ragged dress shirt and torn slacks. His bare feet were cracked and caked with mud. He wasn't completely unconscious, because he lifted his head and groaned. Yep, Tristan McLean all right. Leo had seen that face in enough movies, but he had a nasty cut down the side of his cheek, and he looked thin and sickly, not heroic at all. "Dad!" Piper yelled. Mr. McLean blinked, trying to focus. "Pipes? Where?" Piper drew her dagger and faced Enceladus. "Let him go." "Of course, dear," the giant rumbled. "Swear your loyalty to me and we have no problem. Only these others must die." Piper looked back and forth between Leo and her dad. "He'll kill you," Leo warned. "Don't trust him." "Oh, come now," Enceladus bellowed. "You know I was born to fight Athena herself. Mother Gaia made each of us giants with a specific purpose, designed to fight and destroy a particular god. I was Athena's nemesis, the anti-Athena, you might say. Compared to some of my brethren, I am small, but I am clever, and I keep my bargain with you, Piper McLean. It's part of my plan." Jason was on his feet now, lance ready, but before he could act, Enceladus roared, a call so loud it echoed down the valley and was probably heard all the way to San Francisco. At the edge of the woods, half a dozen ogre-like creatures rose up. Leo realized with nauseating certainty that they hadn't simply been hiding there. They'd risen straight out of the earth. The ogres shuffled forward. They were small compared to Enceladus, about 7 feet tall. Each of them had 6 arms, 1 pair in the regular spot, and then an extra pair sprouting out of the top of their shoulders, and another set shooting from the sides of their rib cages. They wore only ragged leather loincloths, and even across the clearing, Leo could smell them. 6 guys who never bathed, with 6 armpits each. Leo decided if he survived this day, he'd have to take a 3-hour shower just to forget the stench. Leo stepped towards Piper. What are those?" Her blade reflected the purple light of the bonfire. "Gegenes." "In English?" Leo asked. "The Earthborn," she said. 6 armed giants who fought Jason. The first Jason. "Very good, my dear." Enceladus sounded delighted. "They used to live on a miserable place in Greece called Bear Mountain. Mount Diablo is much nicer. They are lesser children of Mother Earth, but they serve their purpose. They're good with construction equipment." "Vroom, vroom!" one of the Earthborn bellowed, and the others took up the chant, each moving his 6 hands as though driving a car, as if it was some kind of weird religious ritual. "Vroom, vroom!" "Yes, thank you, boys," Enceladus said. "They also have a score to settle with heroes, especially anyone named Jason." "Jason!" the Earthborn screamed. They all picked up clumps of earth, which solidified in their hands, turning to nasty pointed stones. "Where Jason? Kill Jason!" Enceladus smiled. "You see, Piper, you have a choice. Save your father or try to save your friends and face certain death." Piper stepped forward. Her eyes blazed with such rage. Even the Earthborn backed away. She radiated power and beauty, but it had nothing to do with her clothes or her makeup. "You will not take the people I love," she said. "None of them." Her words rippled across the clearing with such force the Earthborn muttered, Okay, sorry," and began to retreat. "Stand your ground, fools," Enceladus bellowed. He snarled at Piper. "This is why we wanted you alive, my dear. You could have been so useful to us, but as you wish. Earthborn, I will show you Jason." Leo's heart sank, but the giant didn't point to Jason. He pointed to the other side of the bonfire, where Tristan McLean hung helpless and half-conscious. "There is Jason," Enceladus said with pleasure. "Tear him apart." Leo's biggest surprise, one look from Jason, and all 3 of them, knew the game plan. When had that happened? That they could read each other so well? Jason charged Enceladus while Piper rushed to her father and Leo dashed for the tree harvester, which stood between Mr. McLean and the Earthborn. The Earthborn were fast, but Leo ran like a storm spirit. He leapt towards the harvester from 5 feet away and slammed into the driver's seat. His hands flew across the controls, and the machine responded with unnatural speed, coming to life as if it knew how important this was. "Ha!" Leo screamed, and swung the crane arm through the bonfire, toppling burning logs into the Earthborn and spraying sparks everywhere. 2 giants went down under a fiery avalanche and melted back into the earth, hopefully to stay for a while. The other 4 ogres stumbled across burning logs and hot coals, while Leo brought the harvester around. He smashed a button, and on the end of the crane arm, the wicked rotating blades began to whir. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Piper at the stake, cutting her father free. On the other side of the clearing, Jason fought the giant, somehow managing to dodge his massive spear and blasts of fire breath. Coach Hedge was still heroically passed out with his goat tail sticking up in the air. The whole side of the mountain would soon be ablaze. The fire wouldn't bother Leo, but if his friends got trapped up here, no, he had to act quickly. One of the Earthborn, apparently not the most intelligent one, charged the tree harvester, and Leo swung the crane arm in his direction. As soon as the blades touched the ogre, he dissolved like wet clay and splattered all over the clearing. Most of him flew into Leo's face. He spat clay out of his mouth and turned the harvester towards the 3 remaining Earthborn, who backed up quickly. "Bad vroom vroom," one yelled. "Yeah, that's right," Leo yelled at them. "You want some bad vroom vroom? Come on." Unfortunately, they did. 3 ogres with 6 arms each, throwing large, hard rocks at super speed, and Leo knew it was over. Somehow, he launched himself in a backward somersault off the harvester half a second before a boulder demolished the driver's seat. Rocks slammed into metal. By the time Leo stumbled to his feet, the harvester looked like a crushed soda can, sinking in the mud. "Dozer!" Leo yelled. The ogres were picking up more clumps of earth, but this time they were glaring in Piper's direction. 30 feet away, the bulldozer roared to life. Leo's makeshift gadget had done its job, burrowing into the earth mover's controls and giving it a temporary life of its own. It roared towards the enemy. Just as Piper cut her father free and caught him in her arms, the giants launched their second volley of stones. The dozer swiveled in the mud, skidding to intercept, and most of the rocks slammed into its shovel. The force was so great it pushed the dozer back. 2 rocks ricocheted and struck their throwers. 2 more Earthborn melted into clay. Unfortunately, 1 rock hit the dozer's engine, sending up a cloud of oily smoke, and the dozer groaned to a stop. Another great toy broken. Piper dragged her father below the ridge. The last Earthborn charged after her. Leo was out of tricks, but he couldn't let that monster get to Piper. He ran forward, straight through the flames, and grabbed something, anything, from his tool belt. "Hey, stupid!" he yelled, and threw a screwdriver at the Earthborn. It didn't kill the ogre, but it sure got his attention. The screwdriver sank hilt deep into the Earthborn's forehead, like he was made of Play-Doh. The Earthborn yelped in pain and skittered to a halt. He pulled out the screwdriver, turned and glared at Leo. Sadly, this last ogre looked like the biggest and nastiest of the bunch. Gaia had really gone all out cheating him, with extra muscle upgrades, deluxe ugly face, the whole package. Oh great, Leo thought, I've made a friend. "You die," the Earthborn roared. "Friend of Jason dies." The ogre scooped up handfuls of dirt, which immediately hardened into rock cannonballs. Leo's mind went blank. He reached into his tool belt, but he couldn't think of anything that would help. He was supposed to be clever, but he couldn't craft or build or tinker his way out of this one. Fine, he thought. I'll go out blaze of glory style. He burst into flames, yelled, "Hephaestus!" and charged at the ogre bare-handed. He never got there. A blur of turquoise and black flashed behind the ogre. A gleaming bronze blade sliced up one side of the Earthborn and down the other. 6 large arms dropped to the ground, boulders rolling out of their useless hands. The Earthborn looked down, very surprised. He mumbled, "Arms go bye-bye." And then he melted into the ground. Piper stood there, breathing hard, her dagger covered with clay. Her dad sat on the ridge, dazed and wounded, but still alive. Piper's expression was ferocious, almost crazy, like a cornered animal. Leo was glad she was on his side. "Nobody hurts my friends," she said, and with a sudden warm feeling, Leo realised she was talking about him. Then she yelled, "Come on!" Leo saw that the battle wasn't over. Jason was still fighting the giant Enceladus, and it wasn't going well.